although failing is another story, but definitely on your own path to your success, whatever it is, it will be rocky and you will have ups and downs, and it's hard uh, as hell. So like definitely I think perseverance is the number one thing I could advise anyone. And I tell that to myself every time. It's hard, and it was hard when it was Corona, like 2 months ago. So you just wake up, you're like, oh, it's this time of life again. Just have to wake up in the morning and plow through the day.
Hey everyone, this is Devin Miller here with another episode of the Inventive Journey. I'm your host, Devin Miller, the serial entrepreneur that's built several companies to $7 million plus or seven-figure plus exits, as well as the CEO and founder of Miller IP Law. We have got another great person on the podcast today, Yvonne, not Ivan, and I'll try and do that. And I don't make no promises to the audience, and I won't make a mistake, but I'll try and get Yvonne. And Yvonne started out as a coder some years ago, and then moved over to kind of do some cloud-based stuff. He built up a company, came up to about 20 people working for him, fired everybody, built it up again, and has a great story to tell. So I welcome you onto the podcast.
Thanks, Devin. Glad to be here.
All right, so I gave you a brief introduction, but maybe if you want to start back in your journey, kind of tell us where you started out and then how you got to where you're at today.
Sure. We didn't fire everyone, but we fired a lot of people. Yeah, that happened. So the company that we started that we're talking about right now is Code Anywhere. Code Anywhere is basically a code editor in the browser, pretty much like Google Docs, except you write code instead of documents and Excel sheets and whatnot. And it started a long time ago when me and my co-founder both were freelance developers, and we both live in Croatia on the Mediterranean coast. And since we freelanced, we were at the beach a lot, and we had to freelance a lot, and it was hard to carry your laptop around. And we thought of making something that you can code from anywhere, hence the name Code Anywhere. So that's sort of where the idea for our first sort of real quote unquote business started.
So now, and we'll jump back into it, but I also, if I remember right, you've got two different, I don't know, websites, companies, however you want to call it, going. You've got shiftconf.co and also codeanywhere.com, right? So you kind of run those in parallel or manage both of those at the same time. Is that right?
Yeah, exactly. Something I would never advise anyone, and I'm trying to advise myself to do one thing, sort of focus, but sort of just can't get rid of the two of them. I did a lot of things in my life, a lot of companies, projects, whatever. Not as successful as your exits. Hopefully, knock on wood, we'll get to those soon. But have been trying to focus since then. So now I spend my time on, yes, Code Anywhere, the cloud-based editor, and second is a series of technical conferences called Shift. The website shiftconf.co. So it started as a developer conference and then expanded into a fintech conference as well, and an artificial intelligence conference. And now in the world of post-corona, we have a series of virtual conferences as well. Like everyone else, I guess, you have to sort of survive since there's no in-person for the time being. So splitting my time between those two things. It's been a weird journey on parallel doing both of them. The reason, where do we start with this? Can you tell me sort of?
Yeah, so no, that's a great intro as far as the two companies you're running. So now, as the name may imply, so we go about the journey, right? So that's where you're at today, but why don't we take a step or two backward and say, okay, what did you do leading up to this, or how did you get there? So what did you do before this, and then how did you get to here? And then we can talk about that journey just a little bit.
Sure, absolutely. So, sort of the history of the first or the older company, which is Code Anywhere.
I'll jump in. Go 2 steps beyond that. So even before you started that company, what brought you to doing that?
How far back are we going? How far back?
Go back to high school when you're dating. No, I'm just kidding. So after graduation, you graduated from school. You're in a software program. So did you graduate as a software engineer, or coder, self-taught, or how did that work?
I graduated as under information technologies. I was actually IT systems and networks was sort of my major. But I didn't like that. It was too much dust and dirt and plugging in cables and whatnot. So that's why I sort of pivoted towards websites and programming those and being a freelancer for that part. Got hired right out of school, actually during school, worked there for a while under the umbrella of this big company, and we took care of all of their IT needs, be it servers, computers, websites, whatever. Worked there for 3 years, 4 years. Then ended up convincing my boss to let me spin it out into my own company. So we became a services company for that umbrella of companies.
So without jumping, because that's an interesting conversation. So how did you go to your boss and say, hey, we've got this profitable thing I really think will grow into a thing. Now I don't want to do it under this umbrella. I want to spin it off and do it on my own. How did that conversation go?
Absolutely. So the boss owned like 20 so companies. So whatever, he had a lot of companies. And he wanted one IT team to sort of take care of everything. He also had a lawyer team and whatever, all the other things that he could outsource. And it was just like 2 people. And while his companies grew, I wanted to grow as well. And then I ended up convincing them to hire another person, then another person, and the team sort of grew. But I personally could not grow anymore because you're at the top of the chain, so to speak, inside this umbrella. And I remember, funny thing, we went to Malta, long story, but we went to Malta and I met him there, and we're having a meeting, and I convinced myself that I couldn't grow anymore. And if I couldn't grow, I would leave. And I was just telling him, listen, I'm gonna leave because I cannot grow anymore under this umbrella. It's great. I love you. I love the company. Everything's fine, but it's something personal for me. And he's like, I'm like, okay, the only way I can stay sort of is if we spin this out as our own company. And he said, like, it took him like all of 10 seconds. He's like, fine, but 49% for me. I'm like, no, it can't be like that. I have to have the majority of the company. And then he said, fine, we shook our hands, and literally that was pretty much it. It seems sort of quick and easy, but it took like the 4 years, I think it was, growing and building that connection with him, reliability of us as the IT team, that he knew that we could take care of everything. And I guess it sort of was one of the most confident moments of my life where I was like, take it or leave it. It doesn't matter. And he took it.
So one, maybe just follow-up question on that. So when you guys kind of said, okay, take it or leave it, I need to spin this out, or I've got to go do my own thing. I've kind of hit my, what people always, the cliche word, the glass ceiling type of a thing, right? Gotcha. So you do that. Did he take an ownership stake in the, because that would be hard, if I'm looking out the employer side, say, hey, we've invested this time, resource, growing it, doing, and even if you have a lot of companies, it's still an investment of time and money and effort. So as you spun that out, as you said, take it or leave it, did he just say, here you go, here's the keys to the kingdom? Did he say, hey, I'll keep an equity share in it, or how did that work? And if it's too personal, by all means.
No, it's fine. Absolutely. He wanted a 51% stake in that company right away. And I was like, that can't work. We ended up getting to more reasonable. It was like 25 at the end. So he had a 25% stake in that new company that was growing, which I thought was more than fair because it was a rolling start, right? You start your own company with like 20 clients on day 0. So you're making money or you're getting revenue. I did not make money the first couple of years, but it had revenue from day 0. So I think that was more than fair. Later on, sold the company, bought him out and whatever. So it went pretty well for a first exit. Not super large, but fair enough to get yourself sort of off the ground financially, coming from, fairly humble beginnings.
Okay. So you do that, you spin it out, grow it, get it, or sell it off, make some, or a good exit. So then what was next?
So that lasted a couple years. The entire company, I think, was 4 years, maybe a little longer than 4 years. In parallel, in the last sort of year and a half of that, I met my co-founder of Code Anywhere, who was the head of IT for a bank that was a client of my company initially, or of that, which was owned by that owner, right? So that's where I met him, and we just started discussing these ideas. And then when we started building that SaaS product, so Code Anywhere is a software as a service product, we didn't go all in on it. It was sort of like a part-time hobby-ish thing that we did. And when we saw that there's actual need and growth, potential growth for that, we decided that we needed to raise money to grow, attack the Googles of the world or whatever. And this is where the story sort of starts unfolding. We had no idea how to raise money. We had no idea how to do anything. When someone says you have to,
You don't mean you wait. You mean you don't just have a good idea and people just don't come knock down your door to give you
they
money?
do not. They do not. Obviously, I think it's easier now. I haven't raised money in a long time, a couple years, so I'm not sure, but it seems easier. But back then, especially in southern Eastern Europe, it's really hard. And the only way we thought we could do it was meet investors at conferences. So then, I mean, we were financially okay enough that we could, invest our time, money, travel, buy plane tickets and whatever.
Mm.
So we were lucky with that one, and we flew to like 20 conferences. Conferences, for people that don't know, technology conferences often have a sort of pitch competition in them very, very often. So you'll have like 10 startups that are the best at something, 20 startups, 50 startups, whatever, alongside, standard speakers, parties, dinners, networking, whatever. And we'd always get in the finals. We get on stage and pitch, but we never win anything. We never raised any money there. It was a total failure. I remember one conference, that was pretty much one of the last ones. It was in Vienna, Austria. And me and my co-founder and a friend drove there from our city, which is like 8 hours of driving. On the way back, we fighted for like 8 hours straight. It's like he was telling me I'm an idiot. I don't know what I'm doing. This doesn't make any sense.
No, it's your fault. We're not loaning money because you're not doing it. Yeah, exactly.
It was like on the verge of a divorce. It was two people. So
Well, the funny thing, but you get in with, and that's a side note, but you get in with somebody on business, it's almost as much of a marriage, if not more. You oftentimes will spend more time with that business partner than you do with the spouse. And so it is very much like a divorce or a marriage.
It is. I'm pretty sure you know as well, but like I'm married. I've been married for 3 years almost. But my partner in Code Anywhere, that's a harder relationship to manage than the actual marriage. I feel it's easier to get out of a marriage than out of a partnership for a company. I feel. I'm not sure, but
you got to wait till you have kids. So I've married for, I guess, 13 years now, and I have 4 kids, ages 9 through 4. So that may change the dynamic a little bit at some point.
maybe.
But I get your point. Yeah, there is certainly, you want to be careful. And I'm not saying you don't have a good partner now, but you want to be careful who you choose as a partner on the front end, because I would take it everybody as much as a marriage. In some ways, as you say, more, that you're going to spend a lot of time with them. If the company goes down or you can't work it out and you have to split the assets, it's a lot like, splitting an assets in divorce. So there's a lot of parallels. So didn't mean to take you off topic. So go ahead.
No, definitely for the people that are listening, like I took it very lightly when creating partners early on. Now, much more skeptical. I mean, everyone would say, be careful who you partner with and whatever. But when you're younger, people are like, oh, he's my friend and I can partner with him and he's cool and whatever. It's like, until you've had fights with them, until there's actual money on the table, assets on the table, people have no idea what's going on. So definitely, I can't emphasize that as enough to sort of like watch out who you partner with when you partner, right?
Yeah.
Anyways,
back to your story. So when
driving home 8 hours. And so what we did after that was sort of cool. We found a website which is called Angels List. It still exists. But back then it was very new. Angels List is basically like a Twitter or Facebook where investors and startups sort of have profiles, sort of, for people that don't know. And they have like hottest startups or trending, whatever, on the page. And we figured out how to hack it. The thing is, you have to create a profile and under 24 hours, get a lot of people to sort of like you or follow you or whatever it was. And then what we did is we created a profile and we used all these people that we met on conferences, all these investors, all these people that we were okay with. They just didn't want to put money in us. And they all sort of liked us in 24 hours and we got on trending the next day. The day after that, we got an email from an investor that wanted to invest in us. Actually wanted to license the software and after 8 months ended up investing $600,000 into our company, which for us was like a lot of money at that point. So
that's still a lot of money even today. So
yeah. So and he did that without even meeting us. It was all Skype, everything. I met him multiple times afterwards, but the money came into the bank account. I've never seen the person before, like at all in my life. So I've seen you more times than I've seen him, to be honest. At that point, so that is sort of.
But I'd almost say that. So that was then worthwhile. Even though conferences didn't work out, it did help you end up leveraging a lot of that network and those connections that you made later on. So while it felt as a failure at the time, it sounds like it did provide additional help or pathway forward.
Absolutely, it did, and I'm pretty sure they still do. And I can advise anyone to go for it, but there's a lot of trade-offs later on as well. So there's a lot of good and the bad with that.
Sure.
So what happened at that sort of time? I sold off the initial company and had sort of worked on Code Anywhere, and then we became serious. We started growing, hiring more people. After that, also the next year after that trip to Vienna, after all those conferences, the founder of the Vienna conference asked me if I wanted to create a conference in Croatia, where I'm from. And up until that point, I've never organized anything bigger than a birthday party. And I'm like, yeah, sure. Why not? One of those moments is like, screw
It
it.
could be that hard. I could do
Yeah,
that.
exactly. Like 12 months later, the conference starts. It was an afternoon one at 4 p.m. And I'm like putting up flags. And I'm like, I'm also the MC. And I'm also getting people there. It was insane, right? Super stressful. But people were happy with it. And that first conference enabled us. So after doing that first conference and using the connections from the previous ones we were at, we actually started building a conference business, not knowingly. It's like, it's a hobby and we'll do it next year. And then we'll do it next year. And we'll do it next year. And 9 years later, we've been doing it every single year and now doing 3 events a year. So these conferences are about 1,500 people each. So not super huge, but still fairly large. Speakers from all over the world, mostly Silicon Valley. We fly them to Croatia, where most people, other than going for vacation and seeing Game of Thrones places, don't usually come.
But maybe I'm right. Isn't the Robert on Shark Tank also from Croatia?
Originally, yeah, we're inverse. So I was born in Toronto and moved to Croatia. He was born in Croatia and moved to Toronto. So
all right. That's the only reason I've really heard of or know too much about Croatia, because I love watching Shark Tank. So
yeah. But I've never met him. He's a bit older than me and quite more successful. So like, kudos to him.
So far, you'll reach it, then you'll make it.
Yeah, we'll see.
All right.
So that's sort of where the intertwining between the two events sort of started. Originally, the first event, so the first 3 years of our events lost money, and we had no idea why we were doing them. But you fine tune things. We sort of focused more on developers, which was our user base from Code Anywhere. It started making money, it started growing, and that's sort of the event has, after the first 3 years of losing more money each year, so the revenue went down each year. The revenue went up, but like losses went up as well. It then started plateauing out and making money year after year, which is amazing. And we have an amazing team that runs that now. At the same time, Code Anywhere is going through its other things. Oh, so on a note, what I was saying about conferences is that 1 year we got investors from Techstars. We always get investors as well to our conferences, but one of the investors from Techstars, which is the second biggest startup accelerator, came to our conference looking for startups. And he actually picked us, the founders of the conference, out of all the startups that were at our conference. His words being, and I'm paraphrasing this, is we had 100,000 users on the platform. He's like, if his CTO can create a platform for 100,000 users, and Ivan can create a conference for 1,000 people from around the world to Croatia, then I want to put my money in these two people for what they're doing, right? So we weren't sure we wanted to go, and they literally pulled us out from Croatia to Boston. We lived in Boston for about a year, went through the Techstars Accelerator, got some additional funding, and literally became a company. Before that, we were just like a bunch of cowboys programming. But after that, an actual company with decision process, pipelines, and all that. So it really matured us, not just like the financial part that we got from that, but as people and us as entrepreneurs and as a company. So that was a really positive thing about the conference as well. Again, I'm not sure if I would ever advise someone to do multiple things at the same time, but we did it, and it's sort of been intertwined and working for us along the way. And it's hard to do multiple things, but it has. So after that, Techstars has been great. This is like the 4th conference, if we're talking about timelines. So the first one that was successful went to Techstars. We were there for a year, came back probably right before the next conference. Code Anywhere is growing great. We got the extra publicity, extra, financials and whatever, extra users. And the next 2 years were grand on all projects. And then what happened is we just couldn't grow as fast as we were burning money. And literally it's like, oh, wow, like everything was going great. You're spending money partly from revenue, partly from, investment. You're going great. You're going great. New people hiring, getting up to 20 people, new office, new max, everything great. And then you're like, oh shit, we're going to run out of money in like 2 months and we're dead. So that was really, really hard. Literally, I don't remember. I think it was like the oh shit moments of firing people was like 24 hours, something like that. And it wasn't like a hard fire. Me and my co-founder went for coffee. It's like, this doesn't make sense. We can't do this. We have to let them go. And we're like, yeah, we have to. And then we had an all hands sort of said, everyone, this is it. We actually gave everyone 3 months pay, and said, you can like walk out today, or you can work for the next 3 months, like completely like whatever you want. And we'll give you 3 months pay, even if you get another job. Every single person got a job in like a month and a half after that. So we think we did fairly well by them, and we're still very good friends with all of them, as far as I can imagine. So as far as I know.
I'll tell you to your face right now. It's good.
Yeah. But I mean, we do. Some of them have moved out of the country. They've flown back. Even today, they said hi, message me, like we're gonna meet up. So I think we did that very graciously, or we tried to anyway. And the cool thing is that after that happened, we went through almost going to zero money and losing money and sort of building up the company slowly. We ended up keeping some of the people and hiring them back, the same people that were there originally. So that part was really good and really positive for us, that we were able to go to that moment where we were at our high, go almost back to the beginning, grind through it, and then get the people that you want that were originally there back on your team and working for us even today. So the people that are with Code Anywhere now are the same people that have been, almost all of them are the same people that have been throughout the beginning, minus some of them that didn't come back, but the ones that are there are there.
Just doing one thing, and then we're getting towards the end, so I'll ask my last two questions, but I'll ask them my other question before that. So when you're going through that phase of you're growing, it was feeling like you're successful, you're hiring, you get new offices, you get new furniture, it makes it feel like you're successful, and then you get to the point of, but wait, now we don't have any more money, and we have to figure out how to actually be profitable, not just live off investors. And I think a lot of companies go through that, right? You're saying, hey, we got investor dollars, life is going to be good forever. And eventually those dollars, no matter what company you are, and some can live off investment dollars for a long period of time, eventually everybody has the expectation you're going to make money and you can't live off of investor dollars forever. And so how was that transition of, okay, now we got to figure out how to be fully profitable, how to make this work, and how to make it a profit, not just grow the business?
It was hard. The thing that I discussed with my co-founder, which at that point was sort of on the way out as well. I'm like, listen, give me 3 months. Let's do this. Scrap all features in the product that 80% of the people don't use, and just fix the features that 80% of the people do use. Because we're from a very technical part of the world, and people like technology more than sales. So it was like, oh, we need this feature, we need these features. Like, scrap everything. Just like scrap it. It doesn't matter who gets mad. Just like leave the core ones and make it work. And as for money, we'll literally sell everything. We sold on like a Craigslist sort of website, like chairs, tables, everything. It was awful. It's very, for your ego, it is the worst thing in the world. Like, you pay a chair, I don't know, $300 and you're selling it for 50 just to get it out and get some dollars into your pocket. It kills you. It teaches you, now I'm a much different person financially and how we work with the company. But we ended up surviving financially. We fixed those things. And a year later was like, I think a year or 18 months later, whatever it was financially our best month ever. And the growth has continued since then. It's not a super fast growing company. It grows about 10 to 15% year over year, but has solid growth month over month since then. And even now we're opening up new markets, new territories and whatever. So yeah, you have to be able to sort of endure those, ups and downs.
So we probably just hit on, but maybe not. So I'll jump to I think that's interesting. So I think that, and it's one that a lot of times you have to learn, and everybody always thinks they're the exception to every rule, right? I've always heard or read this, but I'm going to be the exception. And I think everybody has to go through and figure out, okay, what is our core product? What is our core focus? how are we going to make money? What do we need? What do we not need? And learning a lot of those lessons, I think, is something you almost have to learn over time. But you do that, and so now we'll jump to my last questions, and maybe it dovetails, and maybe you already hit on it. But what was the worst business? So my last two questions are always. So first one is always, what was your worst business decision? Maybe this was it, or maybe there was a different one.
So I think the worst, I thought about this question a lot, is like, what's my worst business decision? And I've done it multiple times. I still haven't learned it completely. It's not, it is maybe about the product, but one thing that's universal across all companies, projects we've done, is actually about people. And that people say it a lot, and it's a cliche as well. It's like hire slow and fire very fast. And I found that has always been a problem for me personally. It's just the personal connections where people are really, really, they're good people and they try, but it doesn't work out for the team. And later on you suffer. And that has happened both with Code Anywhere and the other companies that I've done, is that if I'd done that sooner and on time, we hadn't touched on that, but I'm sure that up and down would have been a lot smoother and easier to work with.
Okay. No, I think that's a good lesson, good mistake to learn, a good lesson to learn from. So now I'll jump to my second question. So you to then say, okay, that's the worst mistake. If you're and sometimes these questions dovetail into each other, but if you're talking with somebody that was just getting into startups or wanting to get into startups, what would be the one piece of advice you'd give them?
The one, I learned this from another very successful founder, is that I think perseverance is sort of the best thing, so the best advice to give to someone, because making a startup or any company is not a fairy tale. And you will have mornings. I'm sure you know this. Sorry. I'm sure you know this, when you wake up and you just want to die. You just want to die. You don't want to go to work. You don't want to see anyone. Like life is hell, and it will be hell. And I see people now going through hell, and it's like, listen, man, I've gone through it. You just have to wake up and just push through it. And people that push through it, it's self-perpetuating, sort of like the people that do push through it end up pushing through it. The people that don't push through it just don't push through it anymore, and they fail and close or whatever. Although failing is another story, but definitely on your own path to your success, whatever it is, it will be rocky and you will have ups and downs, and it's hard as hell. So like, definitely, I think perseverance is the number one thing I could advise anyone. And I tell that to myself every time. It's hard. And it was hard when it was Corona, like 2 months ago. So you just wake up, you're like, oh, it's this time of life again. Just have to wake up in the morning and plow through the day.
No, and I think, and yeah, you're right. Learning from failures, getting back up, that's a whole nother story. But I think perseverance is a common key, whether it's the business you're at, and if that fails and you have to persevere, pick yourself back up, figure out what you're going to do next, or persevere. And I think there's highs and lows on every business. And whenever you see the movie, you see the TV show, you read the book, and you hear all the highlights and everything, everybody's an overnight success 10 years in the making, and you never hear about the 10 years in the making. You just hear about the overnight success. And there's a lot of perseverance that goes into that. And I think 99.9% of the time, it's not just a perfect, like it is in the movies, just everything works out. So I think that's a great lesson to learn. Well, if people want to reach out to you, they want to invest in you, if you're taking investors, or they want to work for you, they want to use your product, or otherwise just get connected with you, what's the best way to connect with you?
The easiest way to say it verbally is my first name dot last name at gmail.com. That one works. Otherwise, it's my first name at my domain name, so codeanywhere.com or shiftconf.co.
All right. Well, I'll certainly invite people, if you're looking for a coding platform that you can do anywhere, to make sure that you do Code Anywhere. And if you want to go to an awesome conference, make sure to check you out as well and reach out to you. Well, thank you for coming on the podcast. It's been a pleasure. It's been fun to talk about your journey, where you've been and where you're at today, and wish you the next best phase of your journey. And for those of you that are wanting to tell your journey on the podcast and want to apply to be on, you can go to inventivejourney.com and make sure to apply. And if you're a listener, and make sure to subscribe so you can hear this episode and all the upcoming episodes and get that notification. And lastly, if you're looking for any help with patents and trademarks, feel free to reach out to us at Miller IP Law, and we're happy to help. Thanks again, Ivan, not Ivan, for coming on. It was a pleasure to talk with you, and wish you the best of your journey.
Thanks for having me. It was fun and it was really, really fast. So happy to be here.